Hello everybody and welcome back. It has been over a year since my last video, so apologies. I am back. I actually never left. It's just been a very strange year, I think we can all agree. So I hope you and your loved ones have all managed to stay safe, and hopefully we can just put all this behind us and get back on track. Now, I would like to thank everyone who left me a message or subscribed to the channel. Even during the time when I wasn't producing videos, I got a lot of words of encouragement, and guys, they really do help so much. Even if I didn't just immediately start making videos again, I did read every comment, and it really does put the fire underneath me. It means something to me to know that people like this content and that they want to see more. So this one goes out to you guys. I hope to do more consistent videos again. But the theme of the channel may begin to shift and change a little bit because I haven't been slacking for the last year. It's not like I just stopped creating altogether. I just kind of changed my focus and started exploring and opening up new doors. And most of those doors have been away from the computer. I just become sick of sitting in front of the screen all the time, and I wanted to sort of experiment a bit. And so I pulled out the paints, real traditional paints, and just dove right in. And being a different medium, it took a while for me to warm up to it and to figure out how to best apply those traditional mediums. And it was just such a learning experience. Maybe a lot of the stuff that I made is not up to par with what I'm doing digitally, but I learned so much. And I jumped back into Photoshop, and it really just blew my mind how big the step forward was in my digital art from focusing on traditional art. And I've given a lot of thought as to why that may be. And I'm going to try and convince you by the end of this video why you should pick up some paints or a pencil or something traditional and jump in and give it a go. So here are 5 reasons you should try traditional painting. Number 1, mistakes hurt. Okay, when you're working on a computer, you have this magical Control-Z command that makes your mistakes disappear. And it is so detrimental to your growth to rely upon that command. Think about it. Imagine if you had an undo button in a game of basketball. You take a shot and you miss. Control-Z. The ball's back in your hand. You take another shot, you miss. Control-Z. Take another shot, got it. Sounds great, right? You'll never lose a game of basketball again. But imagine, on the other hand, you don't have an undo button. You take the shot, you miss it, you lose the game. And you realize that the only way you will win the next game is if you improve the accuracy of your shot. And this leads us to number 2. Planning is essential. Now, the paints that I've been using are oil paints. And guess how long they take to dry? The answer is too long. And oil paints mix together. So if you try and paint over one of your mistakes, chances are you're going to end up with a mixed up, muddy mess. So you have to plan ahead. Now, let's contrast that for a second with Photoshop. I don't know about you guys, but I'm guilty of this. You open up Photoshop, start a new blank canvas, and you just throw some color down. It doesn't really matter what it is. You can just modify it on the fly until you land upon something that looks about right. And it doesn't even matter if it is, because further down the track, if you've separated your layers correctly, you can change them halfway through the image. With an oil painting, you can't do that. Whatever colors you put down, they're final. You have to get those harmonies right. You need to get those complementaries right. You need to get the locations of the objects within your composition right. And that means no fuck-ups, no mistakes. And if you do make a mistake, it's going to be sitting there, staring at you for a week while it dries. I know this from experience. I've got paintings sitting up in my living room drying, I hate the compositions. I look at them and I wonder, why didn't I just sketch that out in my sketchbook a little bit better? Why didn't I think about those colors just a little bit more? Why didn't I do small studies to really solve all of the problems before I jumped in and tried to do the whole painting? I mean, think about it. Before I even get to the point where I'm applying oil paint onto a board, I've driven myself to the hardware store, I've bought a large sheet of MDF, I've taken that home, I've measured out all the different dimensions of different boards that I wanted to prepare. I've gotten out my saw and cut the whole thing up into smaller pieces, get out the sandpaper, sand down the edges, grab my gesso, paint 3-4 layers of gesso to prime the board, sit them out, wait for them to dry, then tone the canvases with acrylic paint, and then I bring out my oil paints and start painting. And then you make a stupid mistake, wasting the board and all of that time that you put into it. I mean, it's just not worth it. So inevitably, when you're sitting there staring at a horrible failure of a painting, your brain is going to be racing around trying to think of all the different ways in which you can prevent that from happening again. And that's just not an experience that you will ever get if you're working digitally. Number 3, your options are limited. Now, this seems almost like a drawback, but I can assure you that it is not. Photoshop gives us access to an effectively infinite number of colors, and layered on top of that, you have an abundance of tools to manipulate those colors in all sorts of different ways. Yes, these tools are useful, they're very powerful, but they can also be overwhelming. Have you ever found yourself halfway through a digital painting, feeling a little dissatisfied with it, and then suddenly you've spent an hour clicking through different layer modes and dragging gradients across the image and messing with the structure in different ways? If you don't really know what you're doing, you start to look for magic tools to solve your problems. But if you're working traditionally, you just can't do that. You're not going to reach over and like, my magic brush, the one that solves all my problems, and then make some strokes and everything comes to life and the composition is fixed. It just doesn't work that way. Your only option, as it has been from the beginning of the painting, is to mix a color and apply it directly to the painting surface. And so, you just have to do that the correct way. It really does narrow down your options. And it really does force you to face whatever it is that is holding back the image. Number 4, you will learn how color works. Digital painting allows us to use all kinds of crazy colors right next to each other, over the top of each other, in any way we choose. And that's not really how color works, at least not in the natural world. Color in the natural world is all relative. And you're going to have to think about your paints in the same way, because you're going to be limited by what pigments you have on hand. In Photoshop, just grab anything, very saturated. You have maximum chroma in every single color imaginable. But with oil paints, you may only have access to, say, 5 different colors. And you may find yourself applying the highest chroma red that you own into your scene and realizing that it just doesn't seem to feel bright enough. And the only way that you can make it feel brighter and more alive is to mute the colors around it, or to change the temperature of the colors around it to accentuate the pigments that you have. And this really does teach you how color works in a relative way. And Photoshop's just not really going to teach you that because, hey, you got color dodge. Number 5, and this is the most important reason why you should try traditional painting, and that is because you're getting away from the computer. You're getting your hands dirty. You're actually making something physical. And there's really nothing quite like it. When you finish an actual painting that you're proud of, and you look at it hanging on a wall in a frame, there's just nothing quite like it. And no digital print is ever going to replace that. It's just a feeling that you need to experience if you're an artist. So give it a go. Get out some paints and make a disaster. Make some mistakes and learn from them. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about oil painting while doing this digital drawing, well, that's because this is the preparation that I have done for an oil painting. And if you'd like to see that come together, then why don't you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned, because this one is going to be coming together over the next few weeks, and I hope to see you there. And until then, keep painting.